We have adopted the report on assets and liabilities, and now counties have been given a framework to appropriate assets that are listed in the report. A copy of the report will be made available to you. The report is here. That was done by our Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. It is instructive to note that counties will now have the opportunity to value the assets that have been assigned to them, and the Ministry of Devolution has been instructed by this council to provide the framework together with the Ministry of Lands for valuation of land assets for the various counties, so that it can go into the rollover assets of the counties in question. We have also agreed in that report that counties will equally have a framework on how to deal with their liabilities. And the report provides up to 5 options on how liabilities can be dealt with by the individual counties. That framework is flexible enough for counties to be able to prosecute the item on not just assets but also liabilities. This is a subject that has been with us for the last almost 5 years. And these are assets and liabilities of the former local authorities that are now defunct. There is an exercise that is going on by the Intergovernmental Committee on assets and liabilities of counties that is now ongoing, and the various committees that have been set up in various counties have taken up that responsibility to advise the counties on what their assets and liabilities are. The second item that we have prosecuted in this council is the item on sources of revenue, which we have, as all of us know, we have limited resources that is coming from the shareable revenue, and it has been our position that we encourage counties as much as possible to look out for. We have agreed that the necessary regulations be published to support counties in that exercise, and that process is the regulations that were presented to, the bill that was presented to Parliament is on second reading. We have agreed that between the Council and the National Treasury, there are some outstanding issues that we will request the National Assembly to engage both the Council of Governors and the National Treasury so that the issues that are outstanding are ironed out, and if not so, that the bill will be withdrawn so that we can go into another round of discussion to make sure that we carry the spirit of a united front from both the national and the county government as we prosecute that bill. This council has been informed that the commitment that was made by the government to pay arrears of all our sugarcane farmers, 2.7 billion Kenya shillings, 2.1 billion has already been paid, 600 million has been now certified and validated and should be paid immediately. There is 70 million that still has issues. We have also, I have undertaken that the task force report that was carried out by the committee appointed by His Excellency the President, that that report will formally be presented to His Excellency the President and Cabinet, and the appropriate steps taken to make sure that the recommendation of that task force are carried out, because this was a task force that was put in place that brought all the stakeholders on board, including county governments, the national government, Ministry of Agriculture, the Treasury, and all the other stakeholders that are involved. We have been given a report by the Comptroller of Budget on matters pending bills, and as was pointed out in the policy statement that was made by His Excellency the President, that pending bills must take the first charge, as debt would in any government arrangement, that there is progress that has been recorded. In the year 2017-2018, we had an outstanding pending bill of about 100 billion, but last year, 2018-19, it came down to 34.5 billion. This council was also informed that the 65 billion that was owing to county governments for last year was paid, and so far Treasury has made a lot of progress in making sure that the revenue share due to counties has been paid. So far, already the first quarter to September has been paid, and the resources for last month. And let me say for the record, a total of 62 billion shillings have been paid by National Treasury this financial year, and they are finalizing 20 counties that are still outstanding in the next few weeks. It is also important for us to note on that particular subject that matters to do with short-term borrowing that was being canvassed by both the national and county government. The position is that the East African community countries have a convergence that governments should avoid borrowing from their central banks, and that is the position that will be harmonized by 2021, and therefore borrowing by counties that had been requested to this council was declined, because already national government is in the process of pulling out from short-term borrowing. We got a report on youth polytechnics and vocational training centers around the country that are under the management of the county governments, both from the Ministry of Education. And since the grants that had been allocated, 2 billion shillings grant every year for support to VCTs around the country was coming to an end this year, we have given instructions to the Ministry to liaise with the various county stakeholders so that we can provide a framework for review of that grant facility for the next 3 years in terms of amounts and in terms of mechanisms of provision of that grant. The position of this council is that there must be a criteria that encourages counties to invest in the development of vocational training, and that counties that put resources in development of vocational training will then be the first beneficiaries of our grant that is provided for by national government. But we all underscored the importance of training, and especially vocational training, especially of our young people, and the dissemination of skills and competencies that would facilitate and equip our young people to be meaningfully employed or to be self-employed. We got a report on matters to do with affordable housing under the Big Four plan, and we encourage the ministry responsible to progress that program beyond the MOUs that have been signed with counties. And that it's important that land, not just from public, but from the private sector, also be brought on board. And we agreed that the next IBEC, we will have the ministry present a progress report on what has been achieved. We know there are many issues that have been of a legislative nature that are necessary to facilitate this program, but this council believes that there is a lot of scope that can be covered, and we want to have that discussion with the ministry in our next IBEC meeting. We also got a small report on universal health care, and that there is ongoing discussion between the Ministry of Health and counties. And there will be a discussion in the summit to make sure that this process rolls out from January next year. You remember there was a matter that went to court on what is national interest. That was a subject of a tussle between the national and county government, and the court made a recommendation that this council agrees and provides a framework for negotiation and arbitration on what constitutes national interest. I'm happy to report that this council has prosecuted an agreed position between the national and county governments, and therefore the subject that was directed to this IBEC or this council has now been concluded. We will now forward the agreed position to the Attorney General for onward transmission to the court. We also ratified the decision that we made in the extraordinary IBEC meeting on debt ceiling. And we have also agreed that the matter of debt covers both the national and county governments. And we have agreed on a borrowing framework that had been in the works for the last 4 years. Today we have signed it off, and counties now have a framework that can facilitate their borrowing within the limits that have been set and agreed by this council, that counties can borrow to the extent of 20% of their revenues, both own source of revenue and from the shareable revenue that is shared nationally. And that exercise will begin from the next financial year, which we are already in the process of working. I think those are the major items that we have prosecuted. Let me maybe say that we also got a report which we agreed on draft recommendations and improvements on guidelines for the CIDP preparation in counties, and also for county annual development plans that were presented by the Ministry of Planning. And we have agreed that the amendments are carried so that we can better provide a framework for planning, and that planning will be consolidated by the Ministry of Planning so that we have one page where all our planning, both national and county, can be read from. We have also agreed here that CRA will provide a framework for the voluntary assessment of counties for their credit worthiness, so that we avoid the many dubious organizations that occasionally rate counties as one being better than the other on a framework that is not agreed on by anybody. We have agreed that CRA will engage professional consultants that will then ask counties on a voluntary basis to participate in the exercise of their assessment for credit worthiness that will go into making counties attractive for investment and making counties also attractive for credit. We have finally agreed on ensuring that we improve on making these meetings of the council regular, as is required by law, every 3 months. And I have instructed my office to make sure that that is complied with. I think, unless there are... Yes, we have also delegated some of the items that we didn't conclude. There is an item we have delegated on municipal courts and county courts. There is an agreement that was made between the Chief Justice and the counties on how to manage municipal and county courts and how to treat revenue coming from those courts. We have asked Treasury, the Judiciary, CRA, and all the other stakeholders to have a go at it, because the report that was presented to us was inconclusive, and we believe that some work needs to be done so that we can have clarity on how and by what means can we assist county governments to build the capacity of municipal courts and even build the capacity of their enforcement officers so that these courts become much more professional and we alleviate the burden of counties having to carry this responsibility. We've also agreed that counties will transfer municipal courts to the judiciary, and even where buildings are owned by counties, the judiciary should be facilitated without rent, without paying rent, to occupy these premises and dispense justice in the interest of law and order in our counties and in our country. Did I forget something else? There was something we assigned to you. What was that? We will discuss equalization fund in our next meeting. There was something I told you to go and... Okay. I'm told by the good people here that we have told you the whole story and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you very much.